You notice in all the previous videos, I always iterate about reading a book called The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. There's a reason why I always mention this book, which is a very good read. It can be difficult at first. And for those who don't understand the book and they want it broken down in layman's terms, you can also read a book by an author named Stanley Bean called What Would Machiavelli Do? Pretty much like I really truly believe in my heart of horse that politicians have really studied Machiavellian teachings to its fullest extent. They had to have. Which leads us to good old President 45, aka President Tangerine. During the weekend of the big fight, and by the way, that was a very good fight, and that'll be something I'll touch in when the sports video I'm coming up. And I'm going to probably release that sports video dealing probably around the start of NFL regular season, which will be on September 7th. And there's a reason why I'm going to do that, but I won't get into that till later on. I'll keep you updated as far as that goes. But I digress. I really feel like all our politicians that came to before now have studied Machiavelli. I believe they're disciples of Machiavelli. There's no other way to really state this. And the reason why I say it, because Machiavelli was a very devious person. He understood how to get what he wanted behind the scenes, actually having power without having the power. In other words, what I mean when I say this is, the best way to have power is to never exist. That means he had the other politicians and kings in his pocket. Even though they was the ones supposed to have the monarchy. They're the ones that's supposed to be the one in charge. He was the one really advising and controlling them. Therefore, he was the one really in charge. In fact, if you really think about it, you can even look at the movie Django. The Django with Samuel L. Jackson and Leonardo DiCaprio and Jamie Foxx. Remember, Samuel L. Jackson played the house nigga. And then he was working under Calvin Coolidge. Even though he was the house nigga, when you really look back at it, he was really in charge. He was the one really advising him. Even though he was a coon in the house nigga, he wasn't a stupid one. And that's the point I'm iterating. The point is, he stayed behind the scenes, therefore he was able to maintain control things that went on until that state on Calvin Coolidge's estate. And again, this goes back to Machiavellian teachings. But I really believe, and the reason why we're getting to this whole topic is because during the whole fight night weekend and other events, things go behind the scenes. You know, sort of like when Caitlyn Jenner first came out, introduced himself to the world as Caitlyn Jenner, you know, Bruce Jenner introduced himself as Caitlyn. The POTUS Act was established while all that was going on, so no one really paid attention to it. And I always made a note to say when things get sensationalized, pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes, because those are the things you really need to pay attention to. Which leads about during this past weekend, or maybe even a few days ago, I'm not sure when. But Congress made it a point, and the president signed a bill, which no surprise there, which are now warrantless searches in homes in certain areas of Maryland, D.C., and certain parts of Virginia. Now, I live in the state of Virginia. Now, I live in the southeast part, which is Hampton Roads, which is 7 cities connected together. But this is, from what I read, this takes place in Northern Virginia. But how long is it going to be before it trickles down here? That's the question I'm looking at. But now, basically, you can be minding your own business, doing nothing for no reason. That basically gives the feds, cop, local law enforcement, just to legally search your home just to go in your home without a warrant, and it's legal now. That means your rights are even more violated than they already were. Like I said, say what you want, but you have no rights. That's the bottom line. That's exactly what went down during this whole fight. During this whole weekend, during the midst of the big fight. And it's kind of parallel, and like I said, it's only a matter of time. Think about it. This is just a blueprint. They're already set. White supremacy is already setting itself up for the next 100 years to win and maintain its stability. That's what this is all about. I mean, I remember Torian Rain, and shout out to Torian Rain. He showed a video. I think it was Torian Rain. I think he showed a video where this one white woman was talking about black people need to be exterminated, this, that, and the fourth, because it's for our survival. Now, I'm not sure Torian Rain actually did that video. I remember seeing it, but the point is, this is what they're doing. It's all for survival. Saul Graham, they think, and that's one thing I got to give white people credit and other races credit for. They think we, like us as black people, we like to think ourselves as short term. But when it comes to actual planning, other races, they think long term. They're thinking like 20 years ahead, 50 years ahead, 75 years ahead, 100 years ahead, 500 years ahead. These are how these people are thinking. They're setting up everything in place to keep their survival intact. So it's kind of parallel like when you're playing poker. Like before I even raise, I already think about what am I going to do on the pre-flop, what I'm going to do on the post flop, and what I'm going to do on the turn. I'm always thinking what's called a street ahead, and that's what it's called. Terms are called in poker. You have your flop, your pre-flop, your flop, your turn, and your river. So I like to always think in those streets ahead. But that's exactly what white supremacy is doing here. Now, if they're setting up the blueprint here in D.C., Maryland, in Northern Virginia, the first thing I said to myself this morning when I read this was, why those particular areas? Well, D.C. is being gentrified like crazy right now. It's been going on for quite a while. In fact, I know this because I was actually just in D.C. back in February, which is only 3 hours away from where I live anyway. But I was literally out there in February and saw a lot of gentrification going on. Now this makes things even easier. That now pushes gentrification at a higher rate. Maryland is supposed to be the next big spot for gentrification going on, which has probably already started. Because also when I went to D.C. on that business trip to go see Gentrified, the live screening, there was a woman there who was telling us how to buy homes. And she was saying Baltimore was the next big spot to buy homes that was profits were gonna rise from the housing economy there. She told us this. This was back in February 18th. But you gotta think about the plan. Having these plans in effect now makes it a lot easier for them to push their agenda. And you have to look at the bigger picture of what's going on here. And if they're starting with here and just in these places, imagine when it's set up in other states. I mean, we already just had an incident about SB 43 in Missouri, which I did a whole video about that with the person who made it that easy where you can't sue your employer. I did a whole video about that a little weeks back, which was about SB 43 in Missouri. So if they're implementing these kind of plans, they're going to start implementing these plans statewide. It's only a matter of time, and this is what Jason Black fears, which is actually very warranted, and I agree with him. Where he even stated sooner or later it's going to get to the point where white supremacists they're going to give white supremacists and white people or any other race who supports white supremacy to sit here and say, you have now carte blanche now to be deputized to go kill somebody if need be. So it's getting to that point now. This is why I always tell you I need to tool up, arm up, be prepared not only mentally, physically, financially. You need to be prepared on all fronts to deal with it. Be pragmatic, be resilient, be clairvoyant. This is exactly why I talk about these things a lot. And like I said, this already, and speaking of the deputized thing, let's not forget what happened in Texas where that cop came out of his mouth sideways saying, I want y'all to have rights to go, you have the rights to go harm somebody, kill someone if you have to. See, this is exactly the point right here. All part of the agenda, and things are going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, some people are still asleep. Me personally, I cut a lot of people out of my life I don't feel who's not paying attention. I haven't spoken to them anyway, way before this point. But if they're not paying attention, there's nothing I can do to help. This is survival now. And I don't act on speculation. I'm very pragmatic, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to not only survive but to actually thrive through these issues. And again, that goes ahead and starts with your financial ability. Again, us as black people, we need to be getting our businesses together and pooling our resources. And definitely pulling our resources so we can start putting the people we want into local office, not only to local office. Maybe somebody we put local office, maybe one day might want to go to Congress that can help shape things out. We need to be playing the game that they're playing. And that's where it all comes to a point at. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on the situation. You guys need to pay attention to what's going on. Make sure you don't miss a beat. Go ahead and leave your likes and comments, man. I'll catch y'all in the next video.